obviously you've had film experience in Brazil, which
Yeah.
obviously is a very diverse, multicultural place. But you've come to the UK and done this training course and haven't experienced Afro hair yet in training, in theory, or practical. But is that so for you? What was your first experience with Afro hair?
So when I was still in training, because I realized I wasn't going to get that aspect of training through my course, I started doing a bit of research on courses that were specific. And I did enroll, I was going through my emails just thinking like, oh my God, when was the first time that I actually had an experience? And I did enroll on a course in, I think it was Chelsea College, that was cancelled on the day that was supposed to start.
Oh, wow.
Because it was an evening course, so maybe I don't know if they didn't get enough people on the course, but that was cancelled. So I just thought to myself, I'm still in training. I can't do a full-time course because I was in a full-time course at the time. I can't afford a very expensive course. What can I do? So I just went online and I started watching YouTube, people doing their own hair, and I started researching. I went to PAX and I just stood there looking at all the products like, okay, what's the deal? Reading labels and then that's how I started my knowledge journey. But then I didn't get the practical aspect because I had a lot of theory of watching it. So in theory, I would know how to do things, but I didn't practice it. And also I didn't know a lot of people here. And I know that now thinking back, sometimes we make excuses for ourselves. And I was like, oh no, I don't know anyone here. I can't practice on anyone. But that was my thinking at the time. Like, I don't know anyone that I can practice, but I just kept watching videos and just trying to build up my pool of knowledge for when I encountered someone, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, I have no idea what to do.
Sure.
I had that, and that happened. I did a short film, and then there was this actress that had Afro hair, and she came with her hair pretty much ready, and like it was natural out. We didn't have time to do a whole deal of things, but I just said, oh, I think it would be nice if we had a middle parting, just because. And then I started parting her hair, and then I was just like just brushing it out a little bit, and then she looked at me and she was like, oh my God, you are the first makeup artist to actually know how to handle my hair. And I was like, okay, this. And I was like, I don't even, like, I know the theory of it, but I didn't have the practice. So I was still like a bit, okay, is this what I'm doing? Is it right? Does it feel right? And then we opened a conversation, because then we found out that she was Brazilian as well. So we had that little bond there, started speaking Portuguese, and we opened the conversation and I was like, does it feel all right the way that I'm doing it? Is it okay? And she was like, no, yeah, that's great. Or maybe you could do it a little bit more like that. And then that's when I started to get a bit more practice, I feel. And yeah, so that was it.
Just kind of ballooned from there on a professional short film. Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, this is true, isn't it? I mean, we all learn certain things on the job. Absolutely. Same for actors.
Yeah.
And absolutely for other departments. Did you find that after this experience of the short film, it made you feel comfortable working on some professional jobs more than others? Or what was, just talk me through that journey.
Yeah, because my career has been a lot more on your low budget end of films, I didn't go for the route of being a trainee in a bigger film and then being a junior. I just did a lot of short films in the beginning. Because I had film background, I felt quite confident in just being on set, just being there. I knew how it worked, and I felt quite confident in that aspect. And in the hair and makeup aspect, I would just research what I needed to do to a specific project, and then just crack on. And I did learn a lot of my skill set that I have now. I did learn on the job, and I was very, very lucky that I did my first feature film as a designer a year after I graduated. That was an insane experience, because that was the time that I was like thrown into the deep end, figure it out. We had loads of different characters. We had very low budget, so just trying to figure out how to do the things that we wanted to do. And that one thing led to another, and I just went, just started doing more films as a designer. And then Blue Story came about, and Blue Story was a big film.
Absolutely. Tell me more about that then, because obviously Blue Story is a predominantly Black cast, and it really does look at, you know, London as it is, I suppose, sort of, would you say more so in the here and now than in the past? Tell me what it was like working with that range of Afro hair, and those so many different styles that perhaps were needed, and experience and skills with
yes. So for Blue Story, when I read the script, I had an idea for especially for our lead female character. I just had in my head, as soon as I read the script, I thought, oh, she's gonna have braids. I don't know why. In my head, that was the look. And when I got Carla's headshot, she had her hair natural. And then I spoke to Ratman, and I thought, oh, well, I think she should have braids, just because I think that is a very current look on especially teenage girls. Obviously, I think most hair and makeup artists that I know, we are a bit stalkers. So we're walking down the street and we're like, oh, that's a great look. Oh, I love how she did that. And then I just do that all the time. And then very randomly, when Carla came to meet me for the makeup test, she had braids on. Oh, wow. I didn't know that. So she had braids on. I was like, oh, well, that's a lucky event. So I didn't do her braids. She had her braids done when she came to us. Then we thought, okay, she's gonna have braids on, but how can we make it look different? There was a point that we thought, oh, maybe we can take them out at some point in the film, but because of our shooting schedule, that was just going to be insane to take them out and put back on, because we were going back and forth on the day. So we just decided to keep the braids on and then play around with different styles in that. So I think, Blue Story, because it was, the looks were very current day, it was more of how can we play around with different looks and then we wanted all the girls to look very special, especially made up for the party. So we just thought, okay, what can we do to make it pop a little bit more? And then we also had a little joke of the two girls, because they were really good friends, they kind of mimic each other, because I think that happens a lot when you're young, that you have your best mate and you always kind of dress similar, or she did that with her hair, I like that, I'm gonna do something similar. So that's how we kind of came about with creating the looks. And we had a barber for the boys, so the cuts are done by a barber, because again, I can cut hair. am a barber, but I feel like because I don't do it every single day of my life, we benefit from having someone that does that every single day, that is going to do a really good job, and it's going to do it quick. Because if I'm going to do a haircut, I'm going to take a lot longer than someone that does that every single day.
So what was your role? What was your job title in Blue Story?
I'm the hair and makeup designer.
Okay.
I was the head of my department, being hair and makeup. So I would decide on the looks. I physically did some of the makeups, not necessarily all of them, because I had a whole team with me, but I would decide on who looks like what, and obviously with a lot of input from my team, because I'm nothing without my team. And yeah, so we would just discuss, and I would discuss with Radman some of the looks. So that's how we came about. Yeah.
So when it came to your lead actors, what was the discussion around hair? Because you mentioned that the lead actress, she came in, she had braids done. Do you know what her story was there? Did she just decide that, or was there a conversation that had happened where you had exchanged the idea of her in braids, and she then said, okay, and then did it instead of sort of waiting on production?
I think in that case, I might be wrong, because and that's something that happens with a lot with indie productions, that you don't have a lot of time for prep, that I get the job a week before we start filming. So I have 1 week to reread the script, break down the script, check all of the characters, figure out what I have to buy, figure out everything in a week. So I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if I mentioned it to Carla before meeting her, or if it happened on the day that she already had braids on, and then that was like coincidentally the look that we were going for. But I can tell you what I would do now. Say if I want a specific look from you that maybe we don't have time for you to come to us and we can do it, I would then ask you to go to someone, or I would contact someone to come to you, and then you'd get the look, we would get the receipt, and then we would pay for that service. So I got, I can say on Pirates, we got one of our actors to get her nails done, and then because it was just easier for her to go get her nails done, and then we paid for that service back.
Sure, but the vast majority of people who didn't have their hair done on set and got external sources for their hairstyling, were they reimbursed on Blue Story?
No.
Okay.
No.
So what have you found, because you've obviously worked with different hairstylists at different levels and different abilities and so on, what would you say has been the general skill set around Afro hairstyling that you have come across from people that you've worked with within the hair department?
In general, I find that there is a lack of skills, a lack of understanding, and experience, for sure. Yeah.
And when you were sourcing these people then who had and could demonstrate, barbering skills and Afro hair styling skills, even if it is just styling braids that have already been technically styled but then are being shaped and into new looks, different looks, where did you find these stylists?
So a lot of times it was through recommendations. So I would just get in contact with someone that I knew, and like, do you know anyone that has experience with Afro hair? And then they would send me a few numbers, and I would call those people, and that's how I came about. But yeah, so it was through recommendations or other people in the film industry that I knew that had worked in films with Black cast. I would ask, oh, was there anyone in the makeup department that had the skills that I maybe could get in contact with? And that's pretty much how I built my team on Blue Story. And now, because I know more people, because again, having come from an indie background, I didn't really meet a lot of people, because most of the films that I did in the beginning of my career, I did it on my own. So it was just me. I didn't have a team. And because I wasn't really working on other projects, I wasn't meeting a lot of people. But now I know a lot more people. And then now I know the people that are really good in their skill set, and then I would just contact them directly. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about maybe some films and TV shows that you've been on which perhaps didn't have a predominantly Black cast. What is the general sense around hairstyling and specifically Afro hairstyling? What do you feel is the industry's opinion and view when it comes to Afro hair?
Well, I feel like there might be an expectation for people to come with their hair done, and then you tweak it, but not starting from scratch.
Why do you think that is?
I think that maybe because there is a lack of knowledge and understanding, that people think that Afro hair is hard to style. Obviously, if you're doing editorial avant-garde styles, you're gonna have to take your time, but you would have to take your time in European hair if you're doing something avant-garde and big. But I think that, yeah, there is a misconception that Afro hair is harder to style, or is harder to manage, or harder to handle. One thing that I would say is that I would rely more on people coming to us to maybe have wash your hair and detangled and conditioned.
Sure.
But that's it. Like, I'm not gonna expect you to come and have your hair in twists or have your hair in a specific style. Yeah, I think that's that. But there is a misconception that Afro hair is harder to style or harder to deal with. I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, that what you just referred to about coming with your hair washed and you know, clean and detangled, I mean, that's something that every actor I've worked with has always been told, you know, yes, come prepped, which is, you know, this idea of, you know, make sure that your hair is clean. No one wants to be putting their hands in your nasty, you know, dirty hair. That's not fair. But, you know, and make sure you've done the groundwork. Yeah, you're prepped. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, it then becomes a very different conversation once you're in the chair, I find, depending on what your hair texture is. So you talk of this misconception about Afro hair being harder. Where does that, because that's very specific language, why do you say it's a misconception? Is that your experience talking of working with different hair textures, or is it something else perhaps that's going on there?
I think it comes a little bit with my experience. I think I myself had that idea because it is but that not just with Afro hair, even with curly hair, because that is something that is not, my hair is not like that. My hair is dead straight. My hair is this is my hair. And that's what I had to, what I had to handle my whole life, is a dead straight hair. So I know how to deal with my hair.
Mm.
And when I started training, I thought, well, I need to learn how to manage other hair, other types of hair that are not dead straight. And when I started actually touching the hair, it's like, oh, okay, it feels a little bit different, and it reacts differently to different products or water or whatever, but it's still hair. It's it's still hair. So maybe I'll take a little bit longer to do a parting on an afro hair than a dead straight hair, but it's the same principle of you're just separating bits of hair. So
Mm.
I feel like once you actually get to it and touch it and feel it, it kind of, you break down the barriers, you break down the ideas that you have. The That's why I call it the misconception, because you have this idea of, oh, afro hair is not soft, or afro hair is harder to manage, and it's not.
Like these ideas of like afro hair is not soft, afro hair is not you know, flexible in these sort of ways. Where is this stuff that you've heard other stylists say?
Not particularly other stylists necessarily, but coming from Brazil, that is something that is just openly said, that, and with like a rough translation would be that afro hair is like hard hair, as it not soft, which is a big problem, and yeah, that's a whole other conversation that we could have, talking about specifics in Brazil. But that's the thing, coming from that culture, that was something that was always said to me. And then when I started my career in hairdressing and I actually got to touch afro hair, I was like, no, that's ridiculous. That this hair is just amazing. It's soft, and it's like, as long as it's in a good condition, because any hair can be soft if it's taken care of. Any hair can be hard if it's not taken care of. And I don't know if here that is something that people would say, or would be an idea of like, of the hair not being soft, or the hair not being manageable. But that was something that was kind of taught, said a lot when I was growing up.
Sure. I certainly do feel that there is, to put it nicely, a hesitation, to put it bluntly, a dislike for having to deal with afro hair comparative to, say, more European hair, straighter hair naturally, because there have been so many times where, you know, the preference or the recommendation from a hairstylist is, oh, you know, we could straighten that perhaps, or you know, the options put out there, when really and truly, as a character, you should be able to express your hair in a multitude of different hairstyles. It doesn't necessarily have to be straight, you know, per se. You're someone who has gone out and gone outside of courses, and, you know, taken master classes, and actually found this knowledge, you know, and you've used it on your on the job. You've had on the job experience, but you've also gone out and researched this, and taken additional multiple courses. But you already said, you just said, you had you growing up in Brazil were told that afro hair was hard hair. So why did you make this sudden jump, and why do you think so few hairstylists in the UK haven't?
Well, I can only say from my experience, and for me, it was always very important to be inclusive in my craft. I don't think, obviously, I am not a specialist. I'm not claiming that I'm a specialist in afro hair, I still have a lot to learn. But I feel like if I don't know the basics of every texture of every possible hair that I will have to deal with in my career, then I can't really claim myself as a hairstylist. I feel like we can't pick and choose. We can't say, oh, I just do European hair. That is your job. You should know at least, and being a head of department, at least how to ask people to do. So maybe I am not gonna, maybe I can braid, but I will take forever to braid. So I know that maybe the best way to do it is getting someone who is a specialist in braiding that will be a lot quicker and will do that style in a specific way. But again, if I don't know anything about Afro hair, how am I gonna ask my team to execute a style? I don't know. I always felt very strongly about this, that if you're not including everyone, what's the point?
Well, I mean, I have to agree with you. I mean, of course, because I mean, when I talk as an actor, for instance, I know that for a job, no matter what the job is, if there's clearly a skill set that I need, whether it be an accent or someone with some sort of physical ailment, or, you know, whether that just be from sickness to actually a disability, that is a skill I'm going to need to demonstrate in my repertoire of my acting craft. And it would be shocking. I think the director would be horrified with me if I was to turn around and say, I think that person over there looks like they could be as sick as my character needs to be, and why don't I just let them do my scene for me? That would just not go down well,
Yeah.
ever, and I'd probably be fired.